All right, Mr. Perkins, thank you very much for that. A reminder here, we're with incumbent Mayor Ollie Tyler and Adrian Perkins. It is the one and only Shreveport Mayoral debate. We thank you for being with us here tonight on NBC 6.
We've had a good discussion here on crime, and now we're going to move along to economic development. Okay. Mayor, according to the Louisiana Workforce Commission numbers released yesterday, Shreveport added 900 jobs in October compared to October of 2017. But Baton Rouge saw an increase of 5,900, New Orleans over 9,000. Why are we not seeing similar per capita hiring growth here in Shreveport?
Well, as you know, Shreveport is basically a big oil and gas town. And of course, over the past few years, we've had a lot of problems with our gas and oil industry. Although it's coming back, a lot of companies connected to the gas and oil industry really went when that particular industry went down. We have recruited more than 70 new businesses in Shreveport. We have brought in and helped expand other businesses that were here, about 30 different other businesses. We have actually put in place a lot of training. We have a training facility that we've been working with those underemployed and unemployed individuals. We are still recruiting a lot of different, attracting a lot of different businesses to come in. In fact, we're at the table with several businesses now. So we are going to market a lot better. We've been able to put in place a great marketing plan, but we are looking to make sure that we can bring in businesses, help entrepreneurs get started in Shreveport, and we've been doing just that.
Mayor,
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Perkins, we know that you have military and law background, but as far as we know, no business background or entrepreneurial background. Why should Shreveport's residents trust you to spark business growth?
Yeah, well, my business background, I actually did start a company up when I was in law school, and I also majored in economics at West Point. So I do bring some tools to the table to help with economic development, and I've studied cities in law school. So again, touching on another point that was made, I just want to make sure everybody has a clear picture. Although there's been job growth here, there's also been job loss. We can't count the wins without counting the losses. This area has lost 3,600 jobs. My way to go about fixing that is have an economic development department that is dedicated to going out and marketing our city to recruit jobs here to stop the bleeding here, because we can't get the talent here that we need without being able to offer them jobs. So our city will continue to shrink unless we go out and be able to offer people jobs.
All right, thank you.
Mayor, what do you consider your biggest success economically since you've been the mayor of Shreveport?
Well, you know, economically, we've brought several thousand jobs to Shreveport. Even though, you know, we've lost some, like most cities do. I think our wins are bigger than our losses. And of course, when you bring in 70 different businesses in less than 4 years, expand 30 others, and put in place several thousand jobs for people, our unemployment rate dropped last year to the lowest it had been in a decade. And so we continue to put people through training. We work with all our various companies. We work with all of the agencies that actually work on workforce development.
What would be the one biggest success? What would be the one you would point to?
Well, I would probably say, we have several big ones.
Of course.
But we brought in about 15 different technology companies. And some of those are big in healthcare industry. But the one that I would look to is probably the one that we brought in out at our airport, where we brought in a company that does the airport maintenance of the large airplanes. And that one is really taking off. And we have another big company that we're working with now, trying to bring that one in. And with all of the health care.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate that. Mr. Perkins, now the city owns 5 industrial parks here. One of the most underutilized parks is the Slack Industrial Park. Civic leaders that we have spoken with feel that actually could create hundreds of manufacturing jobs. How do you go about developing that specific park and attracting manufacturers to that area?
Yeah, well, I mean, the employment market is very, very difficult these days. In Shreveport, although we've attracted some jobs over at aggregate, we've lost 3,600 jobs in the last 3 years. What you want to do when talking to these businesses that offer jobs is you can display all of our industrial parks and also display our port. Our port was able to get Bentler Steel here, you know, under Eric's English under Eric England's leadership. So that is a jewel of the community. Utilize that port to go out and attract BMW right now.
What about Slack Industrial Park, though? That specific area, though, it seems prime for growth.
Yeah. Well, I can't say specifically that we would target, because if BMW wants to bring 1,000 jobs to Shreveport, I'm not going to direct them into any particular place. Bringing any jobs, remember, 3,600 jobs have left our community. Bringing any jobs is my goal to our community, and I won't direct them to any particular places. We need them in Shreveport, and everybody can benefit from that.
All right, thank you. Mayor, you supported investing city money into building a sports and multi-use complex at Cross Bayou.
Yes.
Ultimately, City Council voted against it.
Yes.
Looking back, what would you have done differently to garner support, and what are your plans for the area now?
Well, and let me just tell you about the Cross Bayou project. It was a phenomenal project. I think the marketing nationally would have been wonderful for our community. We had the commitment from the Benson family to come in and just really do a lot of great things for our youth. But I think when I look back at what we did with it, we were not able to come out and tell people about the plan because we were in competition with 11 other cities. But when we were able to talk to them about the plan, maybe we should have released a little more. We did not want somebody to get our plan. So we brought in council members and we worked with them diligently. They had no questions. And so when they did not vote for it, I was really shocked. We brought investors to the table with more than $139 million that we could have developed Cross Bayou. And it didn't work. And now that I think about doing it differently, we plan to bring that project back. And we're going to develop that waterfront. But we will do it differently this time.
Okay, we'll bring it back. All right, Mr. Perkins, what do you do to develop the Cross Bayou area?
Yeah, so what we need to do is make sure we're pitching. Well, first of all, we need to go to the people of Shreveport, and I understand the mayor just pointed out that it was some disclosure restraints that you were against, but we need to also go to the people of Shreveport and talk to them about their needs first and have a more collaborative process, even with our city council people. If you go and talk about economic development and jobs, which everybody is looking for, that's how you get the people of Shreveport on board and feeling a part of the process. So yeah, we're going to bring in private dollars. That's important. Private dollars into our community to make sure that we can develop those jewels of our community like that. And we can't bring back that previous deal because Birmingham, Alabama actually just got that deal with them. So we are missing opportunities by not marketing things properly and really tying into the people of Shreveport.
The question, though, what would you do to develop that area?
Attract private dollars to our area. We have a lot of waterfront property, and just not in that area, but in other places in our city. So that's what I would do. Having an economic development department that's going out, recruiting jobs, recruiting people that are interested in our areas to develop that area.
Thank you. Well, we'll turn now to a facility that we do have, Shreveport Convention Center. Mayor, how do we draw additional revenue to the city with the use of the Shreveport Convention Center? Some say it's underutilized.
Well, you know, actually in most cities, the convention centers are there for conventions and conferences. But we utilize that convention center for a lot of other activities. You know, even in our city, different groups use that facility. But we have attracted more than 200 actual conventions and conferences over the past 3.5 years. And so we find that because of our marketing efforts, we've been able to attract a lot more conferences and conventions to the convention center.
Numbers would indicate it's virtually a break-even, though. We're not making a lot of money off of it. How would you go about then making it more profitable?
So let me tell you, the convention centers in most cities are not designed to make money themselves. Okay. They're designed to bring in people that will bring dollars. And so when people come in and when they sleep in our hotels, when they eat in our restaurants and shop in our shopping centers, that's where your economic impact comes in. And so the more conventions and conferences that we can hold in that convention center, and it is one that is phenomenal. We bring a lot of people. And it does have an economic impact in our city.
Mayor, thank you for that. Mr. Perkins, you've talked about creating an ecosystem for Shreveport, economic ecosystem. What is that ecosystem going to look like under a Perkins administration if you're elected?
Yeah, well, we're going to pursue multiple things, not just oil and gas. Right now our economy is focused in particular areas, but we need to make sure we leverage our healthcare industry. We leverage that oil and gas industry. We leverage our local entrepreneurs and make sure we are doing everything that we can to generate jobs right here within the community. And I've already touched on it, making sure we have an economic development department that's aggressively going out and marketing our city. Jobs are important, not just to the people here, but also in attracting people to Shreveport so that we can grow our city. People don't want to visit a city or live in a city that doesn't have anything dynamic going on, and that is the linchpin of that can be an economic development department in those livable wage jobs.
That's the core of your ecosystem?
Yes.
Very good. All right, thank you, sir.
Mayor Tyler, what do you consider the most underdeveloped area in Shreveport, and what is your plan to develop it?
Well, let me tell you, I believe the waterfront is probably really needs to be developed. In most cities, that is kind of the linchpin to getting a thriving, robust downtown. And once we are able to make that happen, I think you will see our city blossom, grow, and prosper. And so once we do that, you know, and we're going to pursue that. We also are looking at trying to develop the corridor with our medical centers out on the Kings Highway corridor. And I think that is going to be something that's going to be very, very important to us. So it's underdeveloped. And today we are still trying to push to get that area developed. We have the only other medical center in the state of Louisiana right here in Shreveport. And so with that and all of the healthcare organizations and companies that we have over on the Kings Highway corridor, we're going to develop that area also.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Perkins, in an op-ed you wrote back in January, you talked about the need for Shreveport to have its own broadband network. Why is this something you believe Shreveport needs? And the bigger question is, how do we pay for it? Because it's very expensive.
Yeah, well, I look to other communities. Everything in my platform is based off models from other cities in the United States. And if you look to Chattanooga, Tennessee, they pursued this technology initiative, and they were able to cut their unemployment rate in half and raise the real wage of the community within a decade. And that's the big problem here in Shreveport. But you can look to other communities, Huntsville, et cetera, et cetera. The way we pay for it, and I presented it to the mayor and the city council last February, is multiple tiers. You can do the most expensive way where you pay for it yourself as a city, public fiber, or you can do a public-private partnership. Public-private partnership are completely private, where Google Fiber comes in and they take care of the bill. So yeah, there are ways that it's very expensive, but you can also market your city so that other people will come in and be able to provide that service for the city.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Well, Mayor Tyler, with the perception of high crime and the rate that it is at currently in Shreveport, does this ultimately affect your ability to attract new businesses to the city? And if that is the case, then how do you counter that?
Well, you know, let me just say that I believe that, you know, crime may be one of the factors that will influence whether or not companies would want to come. I think that we have to develop first selling Shreveport to Shreveporters. When, you know, particularly during the political season, when people continue to beat up on their own city instead of finding ways to help us solve issues, then we ourselves create some of that. And I must tell you that over the past 4 years, I've noticed that we have so many great assets in Shreveport, but Shreveporters don't believe in Shreveport. And so we're trying to get Shreveport to believe in Shreveport. But once we're able to curb the crime, and we will do that, like other cities. I mean, around the country, we have, you know, other cities that are struggling just like we are. When I have dialogue with other mayors in cities our size, they're having the same issues. But we can fix that problem by fixing Shreveporters.
Mayor, thank you for that. Mr. Perkins here, you've said that you have a smart Shreveport plan, and you say you want to make Shreveport a place where tech companies and jobs aren't just relocating to, but they're also created here. How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so you already touched on it when talking about universal high-speed internet in our community, showing that infrastructure is going to attract jobs, and you can see it in multiple places throughout the throughout the country. So once we pursue that and we show the tech community that we're open for business, you will attract those jobs to our community. One thing is, you know, those tech companies operate more efficiently when they're on that high-speed internet. Another thing, talking about crime, which you referenced earlier, you can have smart policing initiatives so that our crime will go down by having it. So the implications are everywhere on having this smart city platform to attract those tech companies to our city.
All right, thank you. Mayor, before there was a change in leadership at the Metropolitan Planning Commission, some council members were pushing for Shreveport to have one separate from Caddo Parish. Do you agree with that? Do you think it would spark new business development within the city?
Well, you know, I don't believe that. I think that the MPC probably had a personnel problem, and I don't think it was a policy issue. And so now that we have some leadership, some new leadership there, we see a tremendous difference. And so I believe that the MPC should operate separately. I don't think it should be, you know, reporting either to the city or to the parish. I think that the form that we have legislatively is working, and we just needed to have the right leadership.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Perkins, you said on your website there must be a public-private partnership, an increase of that. What's your plan to help grow partnerships?
Well, actually getting out and building those bridges into the community, the faith-based community, the business community, and right now what I've discovered is oftentimes, and we just referenced the MPC, oftentimes that relationship is broken. The business community are very disenchanted with our MPC, and they feel like there is no point of contact and nobody really facilitating their business growth at City Hall. So the way that we get after that is creating those relationships, listening to them, putting an advisory board together that's tied into that economic development department that I was talking about, so that we can regularly feel what our employers are feeling in our community.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Perkins. Mayor, clean cities, very attractive to visitors and businesses when they consider relocating to a given city. Despite the Don't Be Trashy, Keep It Classy campaign, some say there is still plenty of litter on city streets and in neighborhoods. Does this reflect a problem with city government, or do you think it's an issue with the community?
It's an issue with the community. Of course, when I came aboard in 2015, we had nothing in place. And if you lived here 4 years ago, you would know that today the city is cleaner. However, it's going to take community involvement. We have a plan in place where we go out and pick up the litter. We go out and take care of the trash, and in 2 days the trash is back down again. And so what I've noticed is that we have a pride problem in Shreveport. So we are going to have to work on marketing Shreveport to Shreveporters. So if they're proud of this city, as I am the biggest cheerleader, then that's going to help us minimize some of the trash. Of course, we put in place a lot of things to try to make sure that we can continue to pick up the trash. But that is a symptom. So the root of the problem is in the community. So we're going to be working with neighborhood associations to address that issue in a more robust way.
Mayor, thank you for that. Mr. Perkins, Mayor says it is an uphill climb. You've been critical of the anti-litter campaign. What would you ultimately do differently? What would you do to make it more efficient?
And I have to go back to my military experience when it comes to inspiring people to have hope and to have you know, pride in their neighborhoods. It starts at the top with the leadership of the city, and trickling down from that, talking about management. I have to point to that. Our city hadn't had a department head for property standards in over 2 years. That is bad management. We need somebody where it's their sole job 100% of the time making sure that the city's doing their part. Because think about the person in the neighborhood who has a dilapidated house beside them, the city's property isn't cut in the neighborhood. It's very easy for them to lose pride in the neighborhood. So the city needs to do its part, and it is a collaborative effort at the end of the day, but again, the city needs to do its part, and I'm going to be sure that I do my part.
Mayor, we're going to give you 45 seconds to respond to that.
Okay, and so let me just say a lot of the properties, and Mr. Perkins would not know this, a lot of the properties really come as a result of people not taking ownership. And so we end up taking the properties because they won't take care of it. Now, let me say this to you. We ourselves are taking care of our business. We do have a leader that's in charge of public works and property standards. You know, it's good to have all these major ideas, but you got to have some resources to go with them. And so I would say when we can find the resources, we can do a lot more things and a lot better. But we need to involve and engage the community in order for us to have a cleaner and a safer Shreveport.
All right, Mayor, thank you for that.